Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and if you can't tell, I'm shooting this from vacation. And when weeks like this are this bad, I prefer to do a lot more vacation than this. And this, it's Billboard BREAKDOwn. I don't remember. Alright, I'm not going to waste much time here. I'm on vacation, I'm with my family, I'm shooting from my hotel room, and as I said, when the week largely looks to be pretty goddamn bad, I'm not about to waste a lot of time with the preamble. You're lucky you're getting this much as it is. So okay, top 10. Very little's changed. A bar song, Tipsy by Shabuzi, holds again at number 1 with strength across the board for another week, although radio is definitely tipping into a downturn despite being at the top. However, it does have a margin that's holding over I Had Some Help by Post Malone featuring Morgan Wallen at number 2. It's actually in full free fall on the radio, but with the likely album bomb coming next week, I think it actually does have a shot to regain the number 1. Then we got Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar at number 3. Still has some consistent traction across the board, but I can see it wavering. But hell, it at least held up against Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter at number 4, and that's wobbly on the radio and is definitely on that streaming downturn. Then with the jump, we got Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish up to number 5. Somebody got that well-timed sales discount, alongside backing good streaming and consistent radio traction, and that was enough to leapfrog over both $1 Million Baby by Tanya Richmond at number 6, which looks like it's probably peaking on the radio as streaming falls back, and Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan at number 7, which actually has better radio but is facing a gap on sales and it got jumped on streaming. Then holding somewhat steady, we got Please 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 by Sabrina Carpenter at number 8. It looks to be a bit of a margins game on streaming and the radio here. She's actually doing better on the radio. And the final 2 songs, which are absolutely on the way out, as I have been saying for weeks, Lose Control by Teddy Swims at number 9 and Too Sweet by Hosier at number 10. Now for our losers and dropouts, where we largely had a slow week, with the only 2 big ones in the latter category both clinching their year-end list spots for 2024, with Type Shit by Future, Metro Boomin, Travis Scott, and Playboi Carti, and I Like the Way You Kiss Me by Artemis. And the losers, they're pretty sparse too. Off the debut last week, Field Trip by Kanye West, Ty Dolla $ign, Playboi Carti, Kodak Black, and Don Toliver fell to 68. And we had continued losers for Fortnite by Taylor Swift and Post Malone down to 49, Illusion by Dua Lipa at 82, and Did It First by Ice Spice and Central C at 94. Outside those, Lunch by Billie Eilish looks to be falling off a bit sharply at 54, and High Road by Co Wetzel and Jesse Murph is quite frankly not losing fast enough at 40. The song still blows. Then we got our returns and gains. In the former group, I gotta say, it's pretty rough between OK by JT back again at 99, Holy Smokes by Bailey Zimmerman at 91, and Girls by Kid Laroi at 90. And I can't say it's much better with our gains, outside of maybe My Kink is Karma by Chappell Roan getting a nice boost off the debut to 81. Granted, so did Luke Bryan with Love You Miss You Mean It at 88. And then we got some residual regional Mexican sparks, with Nil by Fuerza Regida at 73, and La Patrulla by Pesa Pluma and Net Vega at 75. Now for our new arrivals, full disclosure here, folks, we got quite a few, and it does not look remotely good because we have to start off with number 97, Residuals by Chris Brown.
I don't like thinking about it, I swear that it's wearing me down, no. But tell me, who's getting all of mine, residual?
Look, it's been a while since I've heard a Chris Brown ballad, and it's kind of hard for me to take them all that seriously for, well, the expected reasons with Chris Brown, especially when it's a song where someone's actually moved on from him and he's asking who is getting his residuals. I mean, come on, it sounds like he's having a contract dispute rather than lamenting getting dumped, and the lyrical clunkiness persists across the entire song. Chris Brown's not exactly good at selling this sort of heartbreak, but alright, I will credit him for trying. The dejected vibe of the song is not bad, and with the low-key sizzle of electric guitar, if Chris Brown bothered to have a more organic vocal pickup, I could see how it might work in maybe a Quiet Storm setting. I mean, it's not precisely good, and I'm by no means a fan of this, but I get why Chris Brown fans might like it. It is better than I expected. Number 93, She's Somebody's Daughter by Drew Baldridge.
Baby, and if you don't treat her right, hers won't be the only heart you're breaking. She's somebody's daughter.
The line with a song like this is that the story behind it is more interesting, but really, how many relative no-name country acts have found sudden success on TikTok these days from a song going viral? The story is a lot less special. Anyway, Drew Baldridge has actually been around for a lot longer than you might expect. He had his debut album way back in 2016, apparently Cole Swindell might have been involved, but he really struggled to break through largely as an independent act, with this song originally being released back in 2019, with a reimagined version going viral on TikTok and churning up Nashville radio. And okay, look, I get why songs like this might work, and you can argue that the more stripped down wedding version of the song makes more sense, but I'm not sure it's better or even good. The original actually had some groove and could play to that late night warning to this guy, whereas with the pianos and strings it feels much drippier and slower. And I shouldn't even have to say it, but if this is targeted more at the guy so he treats her right, why do we need to play up the parentage and how she's a daddy's girl rather than acknowledge that she's a woman and a human being in her own right? Shouldn't that be worth enough respect? Couple that with Drew Baldridge not being much of a presence behind the mic, where the backing vocals can almost feel overpowering. Yeah, no, this isn't that good. Move on. Number 92, Big Mama by Latto.
Like what I see, so I'm working my move. You give me butterflies. You the one for the mother guys. At the start I told a couple lies, but after that I swear I really tried.
Not the only Latto song we're getting this week, and not to choreograph where it's all going, but why does this remind me way too much of Drake? The filmy skitter around the really brittle keys and the leaden knock of the bass hits an odd and ugly note for me. And then Latto drops into the very obvious Drake cadence for her verse, mistrusting the guy that she's fucking even before her melodic flourishes. And then suddenly the beat gets way more basic with the piano and the stock trap beat, and it feels like a direct lift from the first groove that Drake had on Family Matters. And when the content and flexing feels so otherwise disposable, I'm going back to the issues that I have had with Latto for years now. She's playing to the shallowest of retreads when it comes to chasing trends and better acts, which this just feels all the more flagrant at this point, and now it's with Drake. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not interesting or good. Number 89, Double Life by Pharrell.
Heads or tails, you just don't like the flip all the time. But if you spin it, then you get to see both sides. Oh, the thrill of the double life.
And you know, speaking of Drake, I don't think enough was made of how many subliminal shots that Pharrell got in passing from Drake in the beef with Kendrick Lamar earlier this year. Speaking as someone whose relationship with Pharrell can be kind of all over the place, especially in recent years, and especially the more I discover about his business dealings with Chad Hugo and some of the artists that he has put on, I was legit surprised how angry I got at that "come get his legacy out of my house" line from Drake. The fucking gall of him. So you know what, if Pharrell is going to use one of his Despicable Me songs to throw subs at Drake, I was just fine with that. Really wish the song was better though. The stalking bass line, it is pretty meaty, and the slide jabs show exactly how Pharrell can flip a kid's song to well be a taunt in Drake's direction, but the 4-count beat feels weirdly stiff even before that theatrical bridge brings in all the horns. And then we got Pharrell's squawking delivery pressed through the pitch correction, which can somehow still sound kind of off. And I know some of it is intended to soundtrack a kooky family cartoon, but it's still a lot clunkier than it should be. So yeah, I guess it's cute enough, but as a postscript to this whole beef, I think I'm gonna wind up sticking with Kendrick. Number 85, Housekeeping Knows by Drake featuring Latto. And while we're in this territory, looks like Drake really wants to make us dance and wave those hands, so he's not going to be a threat. In this case, making another watery riff on Rich Baby Daddy with a lot of bassy punch, DJ T-Time snarl over the hook. He really should have been credited here. He's the best part of the song. And Drake largely phoning in his performance as he raps about sex, and Latto plays the very willing collaborator. And look, I will take Latto's relative competency over Sexy Red's lack thereof, but as one of the 3 songs from Drake's 100GB drop, we'll get to the other ones soon, this feels like a complete throwaway, and I don't understand why anyone would seek this out. Granted, that's my larger opinion about such a slapdash drop as a whole, but in the meantime, whatever. Let's move on. Number 84, Why by Shawn Mendes.
I don't know.
mean, it can't be worse than what Camila Cabello put out this year, right? Look, I'm not gonna say I've warmed up to Shawn Mendes, but it has been a while since we got a proper project from him since Wonder, and I was curious where the hell he might go. And what we got is a loose, jangling acoustic pop folk song where he's trying to process that breakup with a pretty prominent kick drum alongside Yelp's Crib from the Lumineers, even a bit of pedal steel. Now, the argument's gonna be that he's liberally borrowing from Noah Kahan's success. I mean, it's certainly in the same heritage of crossover modern pop folk, but I'm not sure it's fully true. Some of the more R&B inspired vocal layering is a bit more interesting, and as thin as Mendes can be as a singer, I think he sells the rattled angst of having to get back on the road pretty effectively. The open question of whether or not he feels it's all worth it, it sold pretty well, and given that he actually did cancel one of his tours for mental health reasons, I can hear that anxiety very present in his delivery. I mean, I'm not sure it's the sort of thing I'm always going to want to revisit, but as it is here, yeah, I get why it works. Pretty good song. I'll take it. Number 83, Evergreen by Richy, Mitch, and the Coal Miners.
Rocking a hard place is better in control.
Well, about time this properly crossed over. For those of you who don't know, this track's been charting for weeks worldwide this year, despite being a track from 2017, from a band that's only released scattered singles since their last album in 2019. And even calling this a track is being generous. The original Evergreen from their debut album, its intro, doesn't even run a minute and a half. A lot of ramshackle guitars, some louder drums, and lyrics that imply a stalemate with a more powerful figure before plans are set into motion. Now, the group does have a slightly longer collab version with the folk trio Camp. Really just gives more space for the surging acoustics and that chiming lead guitar to show out, but it's not enough to really add more here, especially lyrically. And as someone who has spent enough time on Bandcamp to hear plenty of indie pop folk in this vein trying to tap into that sound, yeah, absolutely nothing special here. Number 63, Blue, Green, Red by Drake.
Hips gon' swing my way, draw for me, send for me, broke your back and bend up your knee, bad mind girl can't friend up with me, no.
You know, Drake, you could have taken the rest of the year off, lick your wounds, mend bridges, consolidate your allies, try not to embarrass yourself anymore in public. So naturally, you go back to the forced London accent against the low synths and the rollicking tapping Afrobeat groove to croon through a song where you're mistrustful of your friends in the city as you try to pick up more women and make passing references to the beat, specifically on how your family got called out. And you know what? I actually kinda like the groove here. Give this to any other UK grime MC besides Central C, I'd probably get behind it. But Drake is such a lethargic presence where I can't remotely tap into the vibe anymore, especially with the phony accent. It strikes me as something that was probably left on the cutting room floor years ago, probably with more life, but it's getting pushed to shore up a late summer vibe in which Drake is emphatically not a part. I can respect the production, nothing else though. And finally, number 28, It's Up by Drake, Young Thug, and 21 Savage.
Take a peek, Richy, Millie, no Southwest. Take a peek, on your lips, gobbling on my.
So, running back to Atlanta when you need a few dollars. I kid, only somewhat. But yeah, this sort of collab charting decently doesn't surprise me, especially when it's from the collection of throwaways. And for the record, it does come across as sloppy when Drake just dumps 100 gigabytes of material online. He's got the feel of throwing anything out there to staunch the public bleeding, and I personally don't think it's working. Granted, when the music isn't good, there's the larger problem. The gauzy synth sounds really awkwardly blended against the sharper rattle of the percussion, and Young Thug is barely a presence with his very staccato delivery on the hook. As much as Drake clearly wants him out of jail, I'm looking at Drake's god-awful line where he compares the inside of his Mercedes to the girl's time of the month, and Jesus, can't we get rid of you instead? As a whole, I can't say Drake is remotely good here. Not surprised he still has more bars for A$AP Rocky given that outro, but the flexing on the verse is not that special, and to be blunt, I'm not convinced Drake is good enough at politics to win anything. Those of us in Toronto know know what went down. There are some loose ends you did not clean up, and you should have. Honestly, the more interesting verse might come from 21 Savage, where he very clearly threw in his lot with Drake, and he takes a few subliminal shots at Kendrick Lamar. That's daring, considering 21 is not good enough of an MC, even in the streets, to rhyme with Kendrick. But street rap presents a very different challenge. Even if I think the verse is kind of stilted, it's probably going to wind up getting ignored. But overall, is this being framed as some kind of comeback? Because I don't care for the production, and the content is iffy at best. Not even so much bait as trying to haphazardly control the conversation, long finished. And yeah, it's bad. Not gonna call this good. And yeah, pretty bad week as a whole. Say nothing, I'm trying to film this while I'm on vacation. I can't in good conscience give anything an honorable mention, but Why by Shawn Mendes is gonna clinch the best of the week. Worst, I'm not hearing an explicit standout, but the worst moments were definitely on It's Up by Drake, 21 Savage, and Young Thug, with Big Mama by Latto getting the dishonorable mention, and more because it just reminds me way too much of Drake, and we don't need more of him along the way. Next week, I have to think we're getting an album bomb of some sorts with F1 Trillion from Post Malone. Stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown from vacation, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.